stuff posted. Alright, so today, guys, we're going to be doing basically just a just chatting stream today. So,
Jake. Hello.
alright.
Hola, amigo.
What's up?
And my boys are here. So let's start with this video. Today, guys, I wanted to talk about another good Preach video. Preach is one of my favorite streamers.
What are you guys doing?
You want to fire something up?
I will see you guys later.
Wow.
Wow.
Tell me how
Already
you really feel.
wasted no time.
What are you guys doing?
Masturbating.
Okay, then see you later. Making supper and sitting here reading.
All right, so I'll get back. Hey, Dudsec, how you doing?
And then Blizzard says to you, yeah, okay, that's going to cost you your favorite theme transmog. It's going to cost you your favorite theme zone. It's going to cost you your favorite stories. It's going to cost you already level soulbinds. You're going to have to start again, even with catch-up mechanics. And it's going to cost you all the progress you already made inside that system of the Sanctum. You really think the average player base is going to be okay with that when that reality sets in on them?
Yeah.
You streaming, Angelo?
I'm just streaming random stuff. I'm watching Preach's video about WoW.
Oh.
Fritz Grin, thank you so much for the follow.
And his name is John
Woo!
I'll be back.
Holla ballers, it's Preacher, and to kind of cap out this conversation before the beta gets going, it's been a flurry of activity over the weekend. Lots of attention coming my way. I'm sorry I can't respond to everybody. Huge amounts of DMs, like paragraphs and paragraphs of stuff have been sent at me with solutions and fixes and all this kind of stuff. But we're not there.
I am worried
We
about
put our
covenants and all
feelings,
that kind of
we'd like
stuff,
to
especially
know,
if you
but
make the wrong
a big
choice.
question a lot of people ask me is, one, do you think they're going to change this? And if so, when? Is it going to be a repeat of, say, Azerite Armor, where it's like 8 point, all the way up until 8.1, they were really still doubling down on it and hammering down on that. We're going to make this work. And then they're like, oh, okay, it's not going to work. And even up until 8.2. Is it going to be like the legendary system where we don't find out until like a month later into the game that, they've soft capped it and all the farming you've done has not been worthwhile? All these kinds of things. Or are they going to maybe do something during the beta? My hope, of course, is that they do something during the beta. But realistically, depending on how many people get into the beta, the likelihood is I do think this is going to change. First of all, I do think they're going to get rid of this. I'm going to expand on that shortly. But
That's interesting.
I think it's probably going to be 9.1. And the reason for that is right now, the argument is really based in the extremes. And that's not how we do this. It doesn't work. So on the one hand, you've got all these people who understand that 2% DPS, certainly across a raid team, can be a very big deal, and certainly when they do the content they enjoy, that some of these abilities are a really big deal. And at the other end, you've got people who simply have never experienced that. So telling people that, hey, this matters, to people who have never been affected by it and frankly don't care that you deal with it, isn't going to work. It doesn't work. They're not going to experience it. Just as we at the top end can't really understand how somebody would be okay with being much weaker. That makes no sense to us. So you've got these two things at the very extreme ends of the player base trying to shout at each other. But of course, Blizzard isn't going to change anything for those ends. They change it when the main...
Let me just say this before I get started, that Preach makes a very good point. He talks about how, like if you make the wrong covenant choice, let's say the Kyrians are like 1% better DPS overall, that if you didn't pick them and you're a DPS, you're an idiot, you're a stupid fucking moron, and you suck at this game. Whereas casual players are like, oh, I picked the Kyrian because I like the armor. How could you do that? Or how could you switch and take all this time for 1% damage? And I think we need to move away from all this like elitism. I think that we need to make covenants fun, is what I think. I think that it should be more about fun rather than performance.
Body gets affected. I mean, we got historical precedent for that all the way through. In the Burning Crusade, they didn't upgrade the Karazhan loot, despite the fact the raiders who were there like capped and in there like day one are telling them, hey, this loot is worse than blues from dungeons. It wasn't until the main body got in Karazhan, who had been farming their dungeons in order to start raiding, and then they got in there and they were like, whoa, what the hell? This Karazhan loot is really bad. And then Blizzard changed it, and it was a long time after. We deleted and disenchanted tons of items because they were worse than what we were currently wearing. Same through, say, even Kata. If we look through even WoD, BRF loot didn't really get... The decision wasn't made until it was also the normal and heroic raiders who were saying, hang on a minute, BRF loot is just no good. What the hell? And Azerite armor the same. It wasn't until everybody really got a grip with the Azerite armor did Blizzard go, okay, yeah, maybe we kind of screwed the pooch on this one. So it's when the main body hits it. Now, the big question is, do I think the main body is going to hit this? Yes, and it's not being talked about enough, so I'd like to bring it up today before we get into the beta, because hopefully if people understand or resonate with what I'm about to say, then maybe Blizzard can go, yeah, maybe this isn't quite the right idea. Or they'll say, we thought about that and we don't really care, which is fair enough. But when is the main body going to hit this? And it's going to be after launch, more than likely. And it's probably going to be when the dust settles.
Yeah.
What I mean by...
The first part's going to be fucked up.
So whatever pace you go at, doesn't matter. Hardcore, casual, irrelevant. It's just whenever you hit your stride. And more people start hitting that stride of their end game, whatever they like to do. And the likelihood is that throughout the history of World of Warcraft, there's been a time where you've watched a video, or you've played alongside somebody in a dungeon, or you've been in a group with somebody, or you've seen some of the open world, and they're the same class and they're doing something different to you. And you've just thought to yourself, that looks pretty cool. And that's it. I'd like to mess around with that because I'm a shaman, he's a shaman. I'd like to do that. And that's where the first time ever in the history of WoW, the game is going to tell you, no, you can't. Now, what you can do is you can swap and go and try that out, but you're not coming back. Not without a massive, massive, massive hurdle. And that's when it's going to happen. Now, you're going to fire at me, I'm sure, that you get to test all these things while leveling, right, Mike? You get to test all these things while leveling, so that's on them. That's their fault. That's not a good reason. Well, think about how people level. Everybody levels differently. Maybe you completed 100% of the first zone. Remember, it's linear level.
What do I think they should do with covenants? Oh man, you're asking the wrong guy. I'd probably say that I honestly think that I think the fact that they had unique abilities, I think is the big thing that it shouldn't have, is like that's going to be a problem. Blizzard is one thing Blizzard does not do well in any of their games is balance. They're just not good at it. They never have been. They never will be. And that's going to be a problem. So, but Preach is making a point about when it's time for you to change and you just don't want to do it anymore, which is very prevalent right now in World of Warcraft. A lot of World of Warcraft players don't like to be shackled even with their own class. Do you know how many times as a freaking raid leader I had to deal with people saying halfway through a tier or even 3/4 of the way through a tier, I don't want to play my class anymore. I want to play something else. they've got to make what they need to do is just when you switch covenants, there should be some catch up and some work, but it shouldn't be that hard. Kind of like the artifact weapon, like the artifact knowledge, like artifact power should have just been, wide or something, account wide, not account wide. Like it should have been all your weapons. But anyways, let's continue.
In the Shadowlands, you don't jump around. You go from Bastion to Maldraxxus to Ardenweald to Revendreth in that order. Everybody's going to go that order. So you do 100% of Bastion. Love that zone. It's fucking awesome, bro. Did all the side quests and stuff, and then I got sent off to Maldraxxus. Ugh, didn't like it. So I did the story campaign as quickly as possible. What did that mean? I didn't really get to play around with the Necrolord ability that much. In fact, the truth of the matter is there are several of the Covenant abilities that don't even work in the open world. Mages have abilities like that. Priests have abilities like that. They just don't work. Like, you can try it, but the chances are you're going to think it's pretty shit because it doesn't work. It doesn't do anything. So you're going to skip past it and say, well, that's not why I'm going to do it. Maybe you are a tank, but you like to level as DPS. Plenty of people do that as well. So you never really got to try out that ability in tanking. And I know some of you will go, well, that's your fault. You're supposed to check out all these things and do all these checks and balances before you move on. It's like, this is a game, and I like to level how I like to level. You're suggesting that everybody in the game, the million or however plus players, have all got to follow this little checklist to make sure. Or if you're a healer and you go and you try it out.
True.
It's pretty,
While players are pigeonholed into doing the same thing over and over again, it's ridiculous.
I didn't do a dungeon for that little level.
It's pretty ridiculous.
So I never got to try out the healer ability. I was DPS. I just DPS through it, and I moved on to the next zone where it was much cooler. How many people don't level a lot in zones where they just don't like the theme?
He's making the point that, like, leveling is where a lot of people are going to make their choice, and that's true for a lot of casuals. They're like, oh, I don't like the Necrolord ability because it didn't help me out during leveling, so I didn't pick it. But it turns out it's the best one for DPS or something like that. That's where he's going. That's where I see it.
Like Bastion, so glowy and angelic, beautiful. I went to Maldraxxus, green, toxic, reminded me of Legion, hated Legion, and I'm not going to level there. And then I moved on to Ardenweald, glorious, beautiful. Couldn't wait to get there. I got through it as quickly as I got through Maldraxxus as quickly as humanly possible. Some of these abilities are on big cooldowns, so you didn't really use it that much. Some of them are weird, like Druid Venthyr ability stuns you, does damage to you. I'm not taking that. Kind of is the best one. That's the nature of what we're looking at here. There's a whole multitude of reasons why you might not have even got to really check these things out. But the likelihood is you're going to see that video. You're going to see somebody doing something, or perhaps
that's a great point.
Case that it didn't work for you in the open world, like some of these don't. You're going to figure it out afterwards and go, oh, actually, that's pretty sick. Let me just put it this way. You're a warrior and you're leveling, and through your leveling, you think Bladestorm is the tits. Not only that, it's your favorite theme. You love Bladestorm. You love the zone it comes with. You love all that stuff, so you choose Bladestorm. Then, a few months down the line, you see your boy using Ravager. You see him doing some cool stuff you can't do. In fact, in the BG, you die because someone threw a Ravager behind a pillar or something like that, and you think to yourself, I just want to try that out for a couple of days. Didn't make any sense while I was leveling, but I'd like to give it a whirl. Probably not going to keep it. And then Blizzard says to you, yeah, okay, that's going to cost you your favorite themed transmog. It's going to cost you your favorite themed zone. It's going to cost you your favorite stories. Yep. It's going to cost you already leveled soulbinds. You're going to start even with catch-up mechanics. And it's going to cost you all the progress you already made inside that system of the Sanctum. You really think the average player base is going to be okay with that when that reality sets in on them? I'm going to try out Shadow for a couple of days, right? I've got a load of farming this weekend. I'm going to go Shadow.
I want to touch on that. Because he's making a very good point. However, the philosophy that Eon has tried to kind of place on World of Warcraft is pretty simple. He calls it, he said this several times. He's saying this is an RPG, and he thinks that players need to start making choices and dealing with those choices that they made. And for a lot of people, especially like starting in Legion, we found that the player base doesn't really like the RPG, the rigid RPG aspect of the game. They just don't like it. They want it to be an RPG in the sense of doing different things at different times, but they don't want the rigidness of it. They don't want the old school elements of the RPG. And that was most prevalent with the Legion artifact weapons, where they were like, well, I made a choice. I'm an elemental shaman. I'm putting all my artifact power into it. And it turns out it's not doing the most damage. I want to go switch to elemental enhancement. Well, you've made a decision and you're kind of stuck, you know? And it sucks when you don't make the right one, when you legitimately don't like it or it's legitimately underpowered. But that's part of, I guess, an RPG, right? Like, this is a game that's just way more fulfilling than just playing fucking Fortnite. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I kind of agree with it. I think that there's always ways around it, but then again, this game is supposed to be alt friendly. At least in Shadowlands, it's supposed to be really, really alt friendly. Roll another alt and go Kyrian. You know, you might need multiple tunes. You know, I'm gonna have 2 demon hunters in Shadowlands, and I'm going to pick 2 different covenants because I know that one of them's going to make a difference and the other one isn't. So, you know, we'll see. Also have a Death Knight that does one and a warrior that does another.
Shadow for a couple of days. I kind of want to try out healing a little bit. I'm going to swap over to healing for a couple of days. And then you're going to realize that the abilities you have don't work in that environment or aren't very good. That's true of a lot of the Covenant abilities. And then you're going to be like, I'd like to take at least the healing ability. The game's going to say, no, you can't. Nope. If you want to do that, you need to reroll your whole class. For real. If you want to spend an extended period of time with that without having to drop it and then come back to the other one by Monday and overcome this massive hurdle, that's really a re-rolling thing. And Blizzard's trying to sell this as a subclass. It's not. The Soulbinds are nearly entirely passive things. They're nothing compared to a class. 2 abilities and passives are not a class. The difference between a mage and a warlock and a rogue is not 2 spells and some passive abilities. It's not true. No matter how the marketing is really quite infuriating on this because it's just not true.
He's not wrong about that.
Most people are going to look at the abilities, right? And I know a lot of people are like, oh, don't say most people, but what's the big standout thing?
That's what I did. I looked at which ones were coolest.
In gameplay, it's the abilities. Some people are going to see that giant paladin, Venthia, Death and Decay, and be like, whoa, what is that? I kind of want to just mess around with it. I don't want it forever. I just like to play with it. Death Knight's Abomination Limb. Is it the most practical out of the bunch? No. Could it be fun for a weekend or so? Yeah. Do I want it forever? No. But I'm a Death Knight. I'd certainly like to enjoy what's on offer for Death Knights. I've leveled my Death Knight. I've geared my Death Knight. I don't want to make a second Death Knight to try out that one spell. I didn't get to even use it while I was leveling. It had no purpose for me in the open world. But over there, that looks really fun. That's when it's going to hit the main body, and that's when it's really going to fall down for me. Is when the majority of the player base is just wants to have some fun and just looks at something that their class can do, and the game is going to be telling them no. Unless you commit to it. It's like, well, I don't know if I want to commit to it. I've no idea if I want to commit to it. I saw a cool stream where the guy was doing cool stuff with it. So, okay, I'll swap and I'll commit. I'll go over to it. Okay, I tried it out for a week. Yeah, it was fun. I could do some really silly stuff, but honestly, I chose my first ability because I find it the most fun. So I kind of like to go back to it now. Oh, I've got to do some sort of immense hurdle to do that?
The more I listen to him, and I'm sorry to pause this, the more I listen to him, the more I'm like, wow, this is going to be fucked up. But I think the one thing that they should do is make the transmog account wide. Like if you've got Kyrian on your Night Elf Death Knight, that you can have it on your Orc Warrior as well. You know, once you get it, that'll solve that problem for transmog and stuff like that.
Why? I just wanted to try out a spell for a couple of weeks, man. That's all. I don't want to re-roll for that. I don't want to have to jump through giant hoops just to make that happen. I don't give a shit what the Soulbinds do.
Yeah.
I just wanted to try out fucking being able to grip people for 20 seconds. I wanted to try out.
That's why it should be an open beta for the Covenants.
I can make him do crazy damage for a little period of time. That sounded like fun. I just wanted to goof around with it. Do I want it all the time? No. But it looked like fun. And I'm a priest and he's a priest. So why the fuck can't I do that? And the game's going to say no. And I think that's where a lot of people are going to get. It's just the fun factor. They just want to have fun. They want to play around with their class options. And the game is actively going to tell them no. And there's other elements to it as well. We're all basing choices on a whole number of things. Weekly events. The theme. the current abilities and what they do right now, ignoring the fact that they could change after they come out. We're making a lot of choices that are very committal, and they spoil just fun. And that's what really pisses me off, like, more than anything. It pisses me off because I don't see...
It's not wrong.
The amount of people... I was a raid leader and guild master in vanilla, original vanilla, not classic, in vanilla. And my healers came to me and they're like, yo, I want to do some farming, so I really want to goof around on enhancement this weekend. Is that cool? Because I don't want to heal this weekend. I'd be like, yeah, cool. And they just tell me they had a great time just messing around. Do they want a main enhancement? No, not at all. And you're going to say, you can still do that. You can still do that. Some of the abilities are so bad for enhance, but great for resto, that it's practically a dead button on enhancement. That's not fun. It doesn't matter if you're okay and you can get through things and you'll be fine. Like, thanks for the pat on the back, but I'd like to have fun. Is that okay? Yeah, I know that spell's really fun for enhancement, and I'm an enhancement shaman, and I'm capped, and I've done all these things. I just want to try that fucking spell. Is that okay?
Yeah,
no,
he's
apparently not. And I think that's what it's really going to hit. I think that's what it's going to hit with a lot of people, and it's going to be like, this kind of sucks. But I think that's what's going to resonate with a lot more people, is realizing that environment where you're like, oh shit, I chose this spell based on leveling, but the other one looks really fun, so I want to go over to that. Okay, I'll drop my covenant, I'll move over to that one. Oh, it's not actually that good. How often have we done that? How many people have used a boost on a class that they thought was really fun and then didn't end up even playing it hardly?
Yeah.
You look in and you're like, it's not actually that fun compared to what I thought it was going to be. I'm going to go back to the one originally. That's when it's going to hit, man. Anyway, beta's coming.
Yeah, it's definitely something to think about. I think the more I think about it, the more I think he's kind of right in that he talks about just these difficult choices that we have to make. Then again, I think Eon makes a good point that, hey, part of an RPG is making choices, and he talks about that being a dead button and that not being fun. Well, I think that the Covenants is more than just the abilities, even though that's what people are going to look for. And I think that the transmog is probably going to be first. And I was having a conversation with one of my guildies, and they were talking about that you should just do it for the transmog. And I agree. I do. I wholeheartedly agree. I think it's just part of it. But we'll see. We'll see. I have faith in Shadowlands being better than BFA and probably better than WoD, but we'll see. Do you think Preach is taking it too hard? Yeah, I mean, Preach is always like kind of negative in a lot of ways. He's not 100% negative, but he's probably 55-45 leaning toward negative. But I think that he just he's the type of player that just he wants to do everything, and I think a lot of players now. This is what's going to happen. Okay, what's going to happen is some streamer who's pretty well known is going to be on their Boomkin, and they're going to be on Kyrian or the Necrolords, and they're going to say, "Oh, Necrolords suck for Boomkin because I can't do X on X boss fight." The entire internet is going to blow up and basically say that all Boomkins should avoid the Necrolords. That's what's going to happen. That's what's going to happen, even though there's probably situations where the Necrolord's ability for the Boomkins are great or something like that. I'm just talking out of my ass right now, but to me, it's just a matter of kind of breaking down this fucking cycle of people complaining and bitching about WoW. I mean, let's take a look at some more videos here. They got the mom, what classes won or lost. I don't quite know what to say about all this kind of stuff. I just don't. But we'll see. Let's see if the guys want to fire something up. Hey, you guys want to fire anything up? I guess not. Oh, that kind of reminds me of a topic I wanted to talk about was kind of like what I mentioned before about like players being influenced, and how, I mean, you just saw me almost influenced by Preach, like going, oh yeah, you know, I'm all about the covenants having choices, and all of a sudden he kind of talks me into thinking like, hey, maybe we shouldn't have all these choices. But I think that without choice and consequences, then it's not really, then you're just giving away the house for free. And that's another thing that MMO players bitch about all the time. Like, you're just giving away everything for free. Can't even work for anything. Like, maybe when you get your covenant and the more you progress, the better the ability get. I don't know, just figure something out, right? Or players who are loyal to their covenant, you know, get better abilities or get better something. Because right now it just seems like there is no pleasing this crowd, and I think Preach kind of touches on that just a little bit. But let me go get a drink of water really quick. Well, decided to get a Mountain Dew, or excuse me, an A&W. Fly by night Mountain Dew. Mountain Dew for you. You guys want to hear a funny A&W story? Only because I know my brother's watching. So it's a longer story, but here goes nothing. So we were talking about where we wanted to go for to Vegas, and what steakhouse we wanted to go when we were going to Vegas for an event. And my brother's like, hey, let's go to the steakhouse at the Wynn. And he sends it to me via email. Well, I'm like at work, right? And I've got like 2 screens, and I don't really have time to like really read what he's saying. So I saw the steakhouse at Wynn. And I'm like, okay, what's the name of the steakhouse and where's it at? Like, come on, like, be more specific. And my brother calls me up, picks up the phone and calls me, and there's like people laughing in the background, all my friends laughing. And he goes, do you have a 4-year college degree? I want you to read back what I said and what you wrote in the email. And of course, the name of the restaurant was The Steakhouse at the Wynn, and it was located at the Wynn Hotel. So the running gag is, you do have a 4-year degree. Case in point of our A&W story. So me and my brother one day decide we're going to go to lunch, and we're going to go to the drive-thru and go to the A&W restaurant. One of my favorite restaurants, by the way, fast food joints. And we pull up, and just as this quick quip is, my brother is like my wife. When they go to a drive-thru, for whatever reason, they are like paralyzed with indecision. Like it's like they're picking their last meal, and they have like 10 seconds to pick their last meal. Like, oh, should I get but I want they're just so indecisive. And my brother was so indecisive that he blurted out at a A&W restaurant, do you guys have root beer? And the freaking cashier was like, yes, we do. We have root beer on tap. And I am like fucking dying. And I turn over to my brother and I said, do you have a 4-year college degree? Oh, it was definitely priceless. It was definitely priceless. But you know, what can you do? What can you do? Oh, good times, man. Good times. I mean, it's just one of those things where yeah. But yeah, funny story about me and my brother. And you guys there?
Yep.
Man, I want to fire something up. I just don't know what to play. I want to play WoW right now. I really, really do. Let's see what some of my... Ooh, this one's a good one.
One of the things you recognize being a professional athlete is that there's this whole ecosystem.
Conduits, that's another thing that I want to talk about.
And today is just going to be a bunch of B-roll. Don't worry too much about watching anything. Just listen up. In this video/audio, I want to follow up on my reactions to Conduits, the one system in Shadowlands that, since hearing about it back during BlizzCon, it's been my one worry that has persisted up until I started taking the notes that would make up this recording. I'm going to assume that you have a decent familiarity with what soulbinds and conduits are at this point, so
let me refresh the memory of anybody watching that soulbinds are kind of like the passive talent trees that come with your covenants, and conduits are kind of like relics from Legion, where you kind of like gem them in and they give you stats and ability and like ups your abilities of your soulbinds. And right now, conduits are like relics where they're destroyed once you overwrite them and put a new one in.
well, I at least better add some context first. The other day, during my weekly, I gave my feedback on soulbinds and conduits as I saw them. I just saw them as a selection of super talents that I can customize, and then when I'm out on the field, I can swap depending on the situation. Seeing soulbinds and conduits this way is a narrow perspective that many, maybe most of us WoW players are used to seeing. You know, we're suckers for familiarity, whether we see it or do some mental gymnastics to pretend that it's there. But anyway, when I gave feedback, I shared the sentiment that many had. I want to be able to swap conduits with greater freedom. I suggested a system similar to the Warlords of Draenor glyph system, or more recently with essences. In my suggestion, when you get conduits, they're permanent, and you can tailor your character just the way you want to, whenever you want to, so long as you have these conduits unlocked. That about summed up my concerns and suggestions for making conduits, quote, better. Just earlier though, Belluar released a video with a snippet of his interview with Ian Hazzikostas explaining the philosophy behind soulbinds that, for me, was pretty eye-opening. My whole view on soulbinds being like talent was very much not the way that Blizzard views them. I'm going to provide a link to the Wowhead article that summarizes Ian's response, but I do advise at least listening to the full quote in Belluar's interview because that's better than bullet points. A link to that is going to be in the description too. So in Ian's response to Belluar, who asked why can't conduits be like a glyph system, is that they didn't want players to manage massive inventories of conduits to swap in.
That's correct.
Out, much like how during BFA we swapped out different Azerite gear sets or corruption sets or, whatever combination of sets to suit our needs. This wasn't the best argument to make, in my opinion, and it's actually not relevant. It won't be surprising to see some critics take this bait and use this as an argumentative wedge, like the sole reason to make soulbinds and conduits flexible, malleable, and simmable. The bigger, the massively more important piece comes from the team's philosophical question of choice. We're well accustomed to equating choice with agency or optimization. Swapping gear and gems, essences, corrupted gear, Azerite traits, talents, relics, and all the etceteras. But accessing those series of choices is a journey that involves the typical farming and grinding away so we can get the pieces that we need, and then we can start optimizing, customizing, and all that jazz. In Shadowlands, some of these familiar systems will remain, and we will be able to swap out soulbinds with relative ease, so we'll still have that freedom to min-max, optimize, and so on. However, inside soulbinds, inside conduits, is a different philosophy that will challenge our typical perspective of World of Warcraft, and that's thanks to the notion that conduit placement can't be undone, and that replacing them means destroying the old conduits. Yes, we can theoretically swap out conduits if we continuously farm them out and consume them as if they were potions, flasks, or food. And in the most extreme situations, some players will farm out conduits because World First is on the line, and the conduit loadout between Mythic Bosses 3
True.
and 4, it might make all the difference. We're already hearing from WoW's more vocal and prolific players about extremes the hardcore players will go through, like not choosing a covenant before pre-raid hotfixes come in, or at least
Yeah.
decide a covenant entirely based on the upcoming raid encounter previews. We're going to hear the anti-Ian rants, we're going to hear the Blizzard repeating history rants, and so on. Specifically, we'll hear many players, hardcore or otherwise, go on about the lack of customization conduits and soulbinds provide because they can't change stuff on the fly. If positivity is infectious, frustration spreads like wildfire, and critics will most likely control the narrative, and many fans will buy into the idea that the majority want this. I'm not speaking for anybody, I'm just less certain. So here's what I think so far, and don't mistake this as a defense of conduits, this is just my interpretation. The philosophy behind conduits is an unprecedented challenge from Blizzard to its players. Like, here's a hybrid system of choice and optimization. Here is your opportunity to define your character based on you.
So this is going to be pretty controversial for a little while, but let's take a look at what was actually said. If conduits were swappable, the right way to play would be an inventory management nightmare. That's correct. Conduits are where they think the permanent customization will lie. That's true. Would each spec use a different soulbind for your conduit choices? It seems likely how you split up your specs on multiple factors, blah, 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 and put center. So the problem is that how hard is it to farm these damn soulbinds? Conduits. Like how hard is it? Is it going to be like essences? Is it essences 2.0? Or is it going to be like relics where they drop? Well, actually, yeah, they're going to be dropped from a boss, but they need to be easily obtainable, and there shouldn't be that many. But let's hear.
The player. Like if you're a pure DPS, a tank, a healer, or a role hybridization of conduits will be choice. Conduits are 1 part optimization, and 3 parts choice. As they are right now, soulbinds and conduits can make our characters whatever we want them to be, but not whenever we want them to be.
That's true.
Regardless of my eyes being open, there's still smack to talk about conduits that go beyond the hardcore mentality. Off the top of my head though, I can guess what the almost comically hardcore are no doubt planning, like multiple characters of different class, covenant, and conduit specialization.
And guess what? That's on them. Like, if I was a world first raid leader or world first tank or something, I would have like as many tanks as I wanted times 2, right? Because you need 2 druids, right, to make sure you got the right ones. You know what I'm saying? And that's just the way it is. Like, stop bitching about it, right? Like, we got into the same bullshit during Legion with AP farming of Maw souls. People went on Twitch and they saw their favorite streamer farming Mauve souls for artifact power, and that automatically meant that they had to do that, or because their favorite streamer had to do that, it's wrong. Like, who gives a shit? Like, when Shadowlands comes out and you see me doing something, it doesn't mean that you should be doing that. You need to think for yourself, you know? You're probably watching me thinking, you know, oh, you know, I enjoy my content, but don't be influenced by me alone. Like, do your own thinking.
So they can swap characters on the fly and have a conduit profile ready for that one upcoming boss. Another extreme, I mentioned several times already, the endless farming of conduits to make yourself ready for every situation. What soulbinds will do for many players at first, I presume, will be to confuse them. You know, new temporary systems tend to do that, but that's a different discussion that I've shared my thoughts on numerous times. Anyway, I bet that there will be many situations where players fill their soulbinds with conduits only to regret that choice because they went too heavy into one style of play that they care about without thinking of the others. That's why I think it's very important and also a good thing that soulbinds aren't immediately fully accessible to give us room to make those sorts of mistakes. The most legit concern of mine would be the inevitable moment when player X is committed to their gameplay preferences at least for a while, but then suddenly want to change things up. That's going to be pretty darn disruptive, and unless they hoarded all the conduits that dropped and let sit in their bags, going through that journey to rebuild one or more of their soul binds is going to be frustrating. But to be fair, is this new? It'll
Yeah.
probably feel similar to having to get another set of Azerite gear, or a set of weapons and trinkets.
Here's what they need to do with conduits is there doesn't need to be a lot of them. There needs to be maybe a couple dozen conduits, and they need to be account wide, and they need to be easily attainable. And it's just some little flash thing you can customize on the fly. That's it. That's gonna solve all this bullshit problems. I'm like, I don't know. After a while, I'm kind of losing my patience with all this stuff, right? I'm losing my patience with people who just can't seem to, get their goddamn shit together and feel like they own the monopoly on hating World of Warcraft. Like name the one time, anybody who's watching, name the one time you were 100% happy with the game and there wasn't a single thing that was upsetting you about the game to the point where it made you angry. Like, I mean, nothing's ever perfect, but show me when it was 90%. Show me where it was an A. Show me it was a B. You know what I do need, though? I need a fucking hard drive. So I can add more games. I want to play Heroes. I want to play Overwatch. Play WoW. That's what I'm in the mood to play, and I just don't have the hard drive space for it, so hopefully we can get that in soon. We'll see. Not 100% sure on how that's going to play out, but I just don't understand why it's so difficult for people to come to grips with. It's just a fucking game, man. Like the game doesn't prevent you from being better. There's a reason why the same 2 or 3 guilds get world first every fucking year. Has nothing to do, they've changed the system so many times. Why did the same guys that were good at challenge modes were good at Mythic Plus? Because they're fucking good. It has nothing to do with your choice, your conduits, or Blizzard. Stop making excuses. Okay, that's it. I've had enough. That's my rant for today. But hey, it is what it is. It is what it is. Should we fire up The Escapist too? I was kind of bored with that game. What have I got on Steam here? I need a shooter is what I need. That's what I need. I need a fucking shooter. Well, I had a really hard run today, guys. It's kind of made me drowsy and tired, and I feel like I'm getting like I've had a headache with heat stroke. So I think I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna cut the stream a little bit short today, guys. I'm sorry, but yeah, I just don't feel good at all. So appreciate everybody tuning in for today's stream, but we'll try again maybe tonight. Try and get Heroes of the Storm in or something. I don't know. Figure it out. Anyways, out, guys.